Okay, we're live. Now, welcome to the second episode of Back of Competition series. Right now, we are with the URC judges, URC team, and we will ask questions about the competition's history, and we will ask questions to their personal details that comes into the competition at play. And also, we will ask your questions to our judges here to be answered during the end of the scheme. So you are free to ask your questions in the comment section. Please leave your comment below so we can show up in the screen and then share with the judges. Thank you everybody for watching the stream. And right now I will start by explaining what we are. In my name you see UKET, like UKET. That's a abbreviation of our foundation. We have started a new foundation in Turkey that's relevant with the space research related education and other activities. So right now we are growing our bases in Turkey in many areas, and we are coming from rubber competition students, I would say, and that's why we are here, starting with the rubber competition series firstly. And I am Bahadur. I'm an astronautical engineer, and I have competed in URC for 3 years. And I know the region well, and I like the competition a lot. That has given me many memories, thanks to you guys. So thanks to you for organizing the whole thing. And we have Burak. Burak, you can explain
Hello,
yourself.
everyone. I am Burak. I am event coordinator on UKET. Same time, I am a member of the Red Giant Rover team. Actually, I am technical team leader. And I think that's all.
Işık.
Hello, I'm Işık, and I'm a geologist. I'm a geological engineer, and now I'm doing my PhD in planetary geology. And I used to be a team member of IT Rover team, and I participated twice the University Rover Challenge. And I can say that it affected my life so much, and thank you about it. Yeah.
We can listen to you right now. Tim?
All right, thanks for having me. I'm Tim. I work the equipment servicing and autonomous navigation course at the competition. I've been doing this for about close to 10 years now. So looking forward to another exciting year ahead.
Graham?
Yeah, I'll jump in here too. Hi, everyone. I think everyone who's been to the URC would recognize me as the guy riding around on ATVs and trying to fix problems when they pop up. I've been director of logistics for maybe a decade now for the URC. My first URC was in 2009. And I really enjoyed the event and seeing all of the students, working together in these incredible teams with these rovers. And so I just wanted to come back over and over again. And so oftentimes my work, I've been a judge, I've been a staff member, but many times I end up just trying to help when problems pop up along the way to make sure the competition continues to work.
You, Daryl?
Hi, I'm Daryl. I do a lot of work with Tim on designing the tasks for the north side for the autonomy and the equipment servicing. And I've also been working for the competition for about 10 years. Oh, hey, we just got Heather. Great.
Sorry. So I don't know where you guys are at. How Kevin started it. I actually was just invited in 2007. I didn't do much organization before the first one. I just showed up and we did it there. But Kevin had organized it prior, and I have kind of the starting of that. But I don't know where you're at, so we'll wait till it gets to me for that.
You're right on the spot.
Okay. So I asked Kevin how he started it, and he said he had started a Mars Society chapter when he was a student at Penn State. And through the Mars Society chapter, their project was to build a rover. And he was discussing this with Zubrin. And Dr. Zubrin suggested there should be a rover contest at MDRS. He had been Kevin had been to MDRS in one of the crews. I don't remember which one. And when Zubin suggested the Rover contest, Kevin organized it and started it. And it was in 2007 at Memorial Day week. In 2007, and we had 2 teams. There were 2 tasks, an engineering task and a science task. There were 3 teams, but I only remember 2. There was University of Nevada, Reno, and Brigham Young University. And then there was UCLA that showed up. Sorry that I don't remember UCLA showing up. Anyway, the science task started off where we had a path for them to go around on the north side of the hab. And so it was, I don't think we actually had a timed event. I think we just let the rovers do what they wanted to. And then I think once they were done, we were like, okay, I don't even remember having a timed event. And what we did for that is we placed samples. It was called geology and paleontology, but every single one of the science tasks has something to do with biology. So that one, the geology and paleontology one, was us putting fossils out there that were from the Hanksville area, but not necessarily in those particular spots. So, for example, we got some oyster shells and put them there. We got some cooperlite, which is, as you know, fossilized poo-poo. And we had some chert, and we had some indolus and hypolus. So the chert was yellow, and the indolus were green on the bottom. And we would basically, one of the things is they had to determine what was biological and what wasn't. So, for example, the chert was mineralogically colored, and the hypolus was biologically colored. So that was one of the tasks they had to do. And University of Nevada, Reno was the only one that actually finished that task. Brigham Young's Rover just spun around in circles, and they didn't get to view it at all. And so for the BOU evaluation, there were 2 team members. So what we did is we just had a scientific briefing, and I would ask them questions, and they would reply. And University of Nevada, Reno ended up winning that competition. So that was the first year. The second year, and that was 2 teams. Well, I believe UCLA came, because Tim, weren't you actually that team, or am I remembering that wrong? I was thinking, Tim, you were the actual UCLA team.
Yeah, I did start with Kevin. I think we have to get to Bill too, because we have to introduce him as well.
Yeah.
So,
Bill?
Sorry about that. Okay.
That's right. Yeah, it was all very interesting, Heather. And Heather, I don't know if you remember, but you and I were part of a scouting team in 2001 to look over the site of the Mars Desert Research Station, I think when it was being built or before it was built, with Robert Zubrin and Chris McKay. And we spent a couple days out there.
And Maggie, and actually, yes, and then there were some instruments that Linda, who would become my future advisor, brought 2 of her students down, and Margie Chan from U of U. Yeah. Within March.
Great weekend. Yeah, so I've been working, besides having spent 5 rotations as the commander there at MDRS, I've been part of the URC, I think, for 6 or 7 years now. And I'm part of a team with 4 other judges doing what we call the extreme retrieval and delivery, which we can look at the details later. It's operated around the hab and the science dome.
Thank you. By the way, I'm going to ask Daryl. I don't remember if you finished or not.
No. I think I said what I work on. So didn't have anything more to add there. So.
I see. So we have, with the Heather's introduction, we have learned a little bit about the history of the competition. So I'm going to ask a little to be more specific. When the competition idea came in, maybe Kevin knows about it, but as you said, Mr. Zubrin has told to organize such an event. So at the time, what was the motivation behind it, like to do a rover competition, not a rocket competition, for example?
Not a what competition? Rock competition? Or why a rover? Is that what you said?
Yeah. Why a rover?
Yeah, mainly because Kevin's project at Penn. I believe it's because Kevin's project at Penn State was building a rover. And the rover is very dynamic in that it takes a lot of people from engineering, from science, from a lot of different backgrounds to build the rover. And on his rover, I do not know what they did with the Mars Society rover at Penn State, but at the time, the rovers, that's a main scientific instrument for planetary exploration. And MDRS is a Mars analog. And so it was a really good fit for having students try to build a rover. It's always had science in it. One of the things that's different about this rover contest and any of the other ones is that there has always been a science component. Now, when you get selected for a mission, you never get selected engineering-wise. You always get selected science or scientific merit. And then the engineering has to fit up. And yeah, you can't do something ridiculous. But I mean, it has to be within the laws of physics. But they're always selected on science. And so I don't know if I don't remember having that conversation with Zubrin saying that science had to be required. I think he just knew that. And so there was always a science component for the contest, for the challenge. Because there's other rover challenges. It's just the main one with this one is that there's science and it's always in the elements. That was another thing to make it the most realistic that it could be. So for exactly why it was rover, well, that's really interesting and it can change. For the rocks thing, yeah, the rocks are wonderful, but okay, so we might have a human on a planetary surface soon, but at the time, it was not likely that it would be soon, and so the rovers were the way to explore it. So that's why. Did that answer your question? Or
Yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Ishik, you were asking?
Yeah,
I just wanted to say that, sorry,
okay.
I'm so grateful about having science part in the competition.
Great, thanks. Yeah, and if I remember correctly, you won the John Baranka Award. I
Yes.
don't know what year that was. I'm sorry.
Yes, it was 2018. It's still in my special shelf, protected in our house.
Good. Yes. Anyway, I have all the rules here from 2007, from the first competition up until 2020. If we need to reference anything, if you have any specific questions about it. Like the 2007 rules, I think were maybe 5 pages. I have to look. Whereas the 2020 is not. It's a lot longer.
By the way, since the conversation happened, like about the award, Heather, you might be.
Oh yeah. Okay. Yep. There you are. Receiving it.
That was the moment.
And I should admit that I got super excited when I heard Heather will be here as well. I mean, all URC organizers got me so excited. But yeah, I should say that Heather.
Thank
Yeah.
you. Thank you.
You have fans out there.
Yeah. Okay. So not for sure what else. Is that all the introductions or?
Yeah, we can continue with the pace of the competition. So when I remember, we were building rovers at 2016-17. At the time, the rovers required to have like robotic arms to manipulate like panels and stuff. So the idea behind it, as far as I remember, was NASA's concern with the rovers with the humans element in it. So in the Mars, maybe a Mars base will be there, so the robots will participate the research with the humans. So they will be using human devices probably. So you have designed the competition around that, right? So can you dig down a little bit more about that topic?
So
Yeah, so-
I don't know who. Go ahead. Somebody else can answer that one.
Yeah, that's kind of good. I think so. Daryl and I have worked a lot on several of the different challenges for the equipment servicing, and you nailed it. It's exactly that. We're going to have a human presence on Mars, and we are adding to their exploration capabilities through this rover, and that's why some of the challenges are using human manipulated items like switches and keyboards and valves. And I think a few years ago we got the new lander by one of our sponsors that was made. Prior to that, I think we had a fuel delivery mission with a cart or a wagon. Which we had to. We didn't use real fuel, but we had water in fuel canisters, and I think Daryl, that was probably about the year where I started helping. So I don't know what was before that.
Yeah. So before that, we had an inflatable structure there was a big actually a drum with some valves on it and a large pump. And you had to set the valves and switch the pump on and inflate the inflatable structure. And then you had to reverse the valves and flick it again and deflate it. So that was the task before that. Before that was a solar panel you had to clean. So we had a little solar panel set up. Andrew, one of the other longtime judges, he bought a solar panel and made a rig to set it up. And we put a couple of prongs. So you had to take a voltage reading, and then you had to clean the solar panel off and then take the voltage reading again. And there was a few switches in that as well. And a little screen to read. And then before that, I think it was just literally a panel, like a big, just a wooden panel with a bunch of switches and like a plug, electrical plug you might plug into the wall. And that's as far back as I go. Heather might know what was before that, if anything.
Yeah, so I really wasn't ever on the engineering site. I think in 2008 is when we split to two different sites. For the first one, everything was done behind the hat. It was just the two teams, and John Baranka set up some of the course. I set up the rest of it, and John Baranka and I were the main judges for that. And I actually, to be honest with you, I know this is pretty rude, but I actually don't remember the engineering task at all. I know there was one because it's stated here in the rules, and I'm sure Kevin and maybe Andrew judged that because Andrew was also there. Andrew was only there because he was tagging along with me, and I said, you're going to this, and he's useful. So he became useful, and he may have helped judge the engineering part with Kevin. I don't really remember. But the logistics of it was just the use of the hab and right around the hab. We didn't have all the crazy need for all the space that we have now, the needs that we have now. But the 2008, I was looking at the tasks, and so 2007, the first competition, there were two tasks, engineering and science, and they're just labeled engineering and science. For 2008, there's actually 4 tasks. There are 2 science tasks, one geology and one soil science. And I do remember those 2, and one emergency navigation and one construction. So the construction task, it says the rovers shall be required to secure a 1/2-inch hex bolt on a mock-up equipment panel. So I guess year 2, the equipment panel was 2008, came into existence and remained, actually, I believe, until it got changed to some panel with the inflatable thing. And I haven't been to it. I wasn't at the engineering site for the rest of it. So
but yeah, the equipment task has gotten harder and more complicated and more subtasks every year. Basically, it has grown as the capabilities of the rovers have grown, and they get more and more capable. The last few years, some of the best teams have implemented inverse kinematics so that the rover arm can naturally move like a human would, where you move more than one joint at a time, rather than just going, like up across and like 1 degree of freedom at a time. They can do multiple at a time, and that's helped. Particularly some of the winning teams do the tasks a lot quicker. Depth perception. Some of the teams have had that too, with binocular vision. So they're not like stabbing around, not knowing where in space their hand is, and some of those, they can do the tasks which 5-10 years ago would have been almost impossible. Now they can do them really quickly. So that task keeps getting more complex.
I think you just pointed out a couple of key things, that the what's available off the shelf and what the students are learning is allowing far more complicated tasks than we had. And I remember at the beginning how often the rovers would just get over we had one that just went a meter over the line, and a couple of pieces fell off, and there was some smoke, and and this wasn't extremely unusual at the time. And what I wanted to bring out, I think is worth our discussing, is the pedagogical aspect, that as the teams and technology became more sophisticated, and And it's important to realize it's not the people were getting better. It's that because they were graduating and new students were coming in. So just the sheer capability of students at that level was changing. We were starting to think more about what is it that we want them to learn. And I think that's been an important part of the shaping of the mission.
I remember when I first started a decade ago, I think a lot of the best teams were programming like on the chip. You know, that they were doing machine language programming because it was the most robust. And like if you took a laptop out there 10 years ago, you were just asking for the you know, when you shake it around on the rover and the sun and the heat and dust blowing, you were just asking for your rover to fail. And so it was a lot of the best teams were going as basic and reliable, solidly reliable as they could. Nowadays, the teams don't think twice about putting a embedded computer with, you know, more processing power than you could imagine, just straight on the rover, and it, you know, they work flawlessly. So
also within the science, like it's in 2008 is when we started requiring instrumentations on the rover. So 2007, we didn't necessarily get guidelines, except for that you need to do geology, paleontology, and distinguish biological from mineralogical. For 2008, we required them to have a pH meter and a temperature sensor on the rover. That was for the soil science task, and for the geology one, we required a UV invisible spectrometer, and that's 2008. So that would have been above. That would have been before it was easy to just buy them off the shelf. So most of the teams built theirs or took something like BYU. I kind of think they took like a blender or something and modified it. BYU was always very ingenious and creative on what they did for most of the time. And then in 2010, we didn't require any specific instruments, but we required sample return. So we started making them bring a sample back and analyzing it in 2010. And that kind of stayed, just different variations of sample return and caching and stuff like that as the evolution goes on. We are generally, the URC is generally about a few years ahead of whatever's actually being done on Mars, because one of the main goals here is to help these students find jobs, and if they've already have experience in this stuff, they're more likely to get hired. And also, URC doesn't have the bureaucratic red tape that the actual agency does. So, yeah. So we did sample cache and sample return, and we are on life detection still, and we've been doing that for a few years. Once about 50% of the team can successfully do the task, we modify it. That's the year to modify it. Unless I just come up with a better task and I'm like, okay, well, we need to do something different. But until, like, if we have the task and most of the teams can't do it, that tells me that was too challenging of a task, and we need to have that remain that way until at least half the teams can do it, and then we'll move on. So that's how we evolve the science task. That's how we've been evolving it for the past 10 years or so. The first years I just changed it every year, but yeah. Anyway, I don't know if you guys asked that question or not, but that's the information right there. So.
The evolution of the science task was a question from Rick Hoover, and that's answered, I think. So do you want to add something to it as well?
What about the science task in Vancouver? What did you say?
Yeah, they asked about the evolution of the science task.
Oh, I see this now. Hoover. Yeah, okay, so that's how it is. So a lot of it, the first year, it was based, so when I started judging this, I was a doctoral student at Utah State University. And I don't know if Kevin called me because Zubrin suggested me or if somebody else suggested me. I have no idea. But Kevin called me and invited me to do it because I was in state. So there's no funding. There's never been funding for this. So it was easy for me to get there without it costing much money to be a judge. And so from then on, I've just kind of say that now. Fortunately, I do have a doctorate, graduated and all that stuff. But my research area was in life detection. And so that's how I got to be the science judge. And then the tasks have just changed on either my knowledge evolving or the knowledge of the astrobiology community evolving. So the pH, the temperature, and the UV visible spectrometer That was chosen based because I was doing soil science work, and pH and temperature are just fundamental to life as well. And the spectrometer was something that you could see from a distance without disturbing the sample, and I didn't want to destroy all the samples at MDRS. The first year, we chose fossils that were actually native to the MDRS area. And so that's why those fossils were chosen, or that life was chosen. The second year, the extremophile search task is endoliths, which are microorganisms that live about an inch under the centimeter. Were very, very populous around the MDRS area. Like you go to any sandstone outcrop and they were there. And that's not the case everywhere. And so we focused on the endoliths for the third year. The fourth year, we did sample return, and that's because there were discussions of the sample return task, just within the Mars community in general. In order to detect life, you need to bring a sample back. So then we thought, well, let's put sample return in. And then the sample return task evolved to also include planetary protection issues, meaning don't contaminate the sample, so scientific integrity of the sample. And then also it later evolved to include lab analysis, because we figured, well, if you bring the sample back, it's going to go to different labs. So we included lab analysis. We ended up taking the lab analysis out for two reasons. One, logistically, and logistically was the main reason. Scientifically, there could be just an independent rover, and scientifically, a human's not going to be going to Mars anytime that soon. So it wasn't realistic to leave a lab component in, because you're not going to get the samples back anytime soon. Plus, the Mars caching now, I mean, those samples are coming back in a decade at most, at the least. So we removed the lab component. We did add the lab component because it increased the science, and we thought, well, the samples will go there anyway. But then, and the lab component also had the issue with a lot of the students are bringing some of the chemicals, so there's an issue disposing. So logistically as well, we took that out.
We had that issue.
What'd you say?
And we had that issue of transferring all those chemicals. Actually, we have such question in the comments about it.
Can everyone see and hear? Good question. Oh, right. How teams traveling international should transport chemicals. So it's up to them to transport them. What teams have done in the past, if they found a U.S. institution, say BYU or some U.S. institution that has gotten into the competition, and they ship them to that lab, and then they pick them up from that lab, and generally they return it to that lab and donate the unused chemicals to that lab and dispose of the chemicals properly with whatever that United States University's regulations are. And we're fine with that. That's generally what's happened. Now, if you're a brand new team, you don't have the camaraderie and the connection of the other teams. I think there's a Facebook group for URC, so you might be able to go in and be like, hey, can we ship chemicals to your lab? Now, if these teams are pure engineering teams, they may not be able to receive the chemicals because you have to have a specific facilities to receive them. So they might take a little work on their end, but that's generally how the international folks have done it that we've approved of. Non-approved way is taking it in your suitcase. We do not approve of that way. We do not endorse that way. And yeah. And then also getting rid of the chemical, depending on what the chemical is, they dispose of it with a U.S. university. Or I guess in this case, you could use a Canadian because they drive. Somewhere where you're not flying, somewhere where it's contained and they can dispose of it properly. But we could think about having some kind of chemical disposal area. It's just we haven't yet. We haven't logistically dealt with that yet.
I don't see that happening in Hanksville anytime soon.
Yeah, we're not expecting that anytime soon either. So if that answers your question, the main thing is to get a U.S. team because a lot of the companies won't ship to like a U.S. post office box. And there's not a facility in Hanksville. I don't even think the BLM could receive the chemicals. I don't think they have any labs with proper containment for the chemicals.
No, there's nothing like that in I think BYU is probably the closest.
Yeah, and then Grand Canyon University and Grand Junction University. There's a university in Grand Junction. I do not remember the name of it. Maybe called University of Grand Junction. That's technically the closest university, but they don't really participate. So BYU is the best. The best case.
I see. So I'm going to go with the comment section, and I will add my questions as well. So someone asked that if the URC 2022 will happen. It's a very broad question.
It is a wonderful question, and right now the answer is yes, but it's always depending on world situation. So we take safety as the number one priority, safety for us and safety for the students. Right now, we are intending to have it, and everyone who shows up must be fully vaccinated, must have proof of fully vaccination. So in the US, that's 2 doses and a booster. In Israel, it's 4 doses. So whatever your country is, that's the most vaccinated, everybody needs to be vaccinated, staff and competitors. And there's also a limit as to how many people can come. We don't know exactly what those are going to be yet. We are hoping 22 will happen, but again, you know, we didn't expect 2020 to be canceled either, or 2021. So.
I have a question. It's some kind of combination whether URC 2020 will happen and how the systems improved. So this year we are expecting, not really expecting, but suggesting to build drone, which is new. Do you want to talk about that?
We're expecting what?
Drone.
Oh, so drones actually are not new. BYU brought a drone. I don't know what year it was. Probably 2009. I think BYU brought the drone, and or maybe it was a Polish team. I think it was BYU. I think BYU was the first.
It was BYU. Yep.
Yeah, BYU brought it. And if Daryl, if you were involved in it, that would have been 2012. Anyway, what we made them do is put, it was just a normal Earth drone, but the atmosphere of Mars is different. So we made them put a T-shirt on it and weigh it down so that it would be weighted as if it was on Mars. And that was allowed. And then the next year, I think the 4 or 5 teams brought drones. Then we had a different staff member, or an additional staff member join the URC judging staff, who happens to run MDRS. And there was some question as to whether or not the drones could fly because of how close they are to the Hanksville airport.
The FAA changed the rules, basically.
Okay. Or FAA changed the rules. Okay, that's fine.
Yeah,
I don't think I actually ever looked into the rules ever to begin with.
Yeah. So part of my background is in drones, and unfortunately, the FAA changed the rules. There's an uncontrolled airport in Hanksville, and MDRS is just within the 5-mile radius of that. And the FAA changed the rules and said you can't fly within 5 miles of any airport. And then it was, I think, 2 years ago now, the FAA changed the rules back again and said it's an uncontrolled airfield, you can fly. So that was basically why we started considering allowing drones again, since we now we now have the ability, legal ability to fly them there again, and they have to fly like under like 400 feet above sea level, above ground level. But I mean that, and we need a spotter to make sure there aren't actually any planes landing at the airport at the time. But I have never ever seen a single airplane land at that airfield. So
there are some that land there. I mean, when MDRS was being built, there was an airplane crash by somebody that was building the MDRS pad from that.
Okay.
So there are some flights in and out of there. So some good questions too is that the science task by 28 was on the south side, so we're a little bit further from the airport. The airport's on the north, and the BYU didn't actually use the drones on the engineering task, which is a few kilometers future. So we might have been within the 5 miles, or I just wasn't paying attention to the FAA rules. So that as well. And another point for grants, there's also some safety concerns. And so, for example, if Amanda almost got hit in the face with a metal blade, we then will have a rule, no more metal drone blades. Usually when the rules come up, it's because some team has done something that we never would have expected. And so now we have to make a rule for it. Like, for example, when you travel, when an international team shows up in Hanksville with 0 transportation, unfortunately, we did not make it clear enough that there was zero transportation in Hanksville. And so a team would go around knocking on the doors, asking for rides out to Hanksville because they expected a public transportation system, because most of the world has a public transportation system. We, however, do not. So now we have a whole section in there about like logistics, like make sure you get a rental car, do not show up knocking on everyone's door trying to get a ride out. And now the big bus thing. The huge buses came in one year that can't fit down the road. So now we have the thing, please don't come with a huge bus. So things like that happen. I think the rules like that get put in there because there's been an incident or an issue in the past that is a safety concern. So
I see.
Yeah, we have.
Yeah, I think a lot of the teams do not appreciate how remote MDRS really is. And I mean it's 5 miles down a really bad dirt road. It's barely more than an ATV trail. So,
the other thing that was an issue was the food. We've had vegetarians in the competition since it started. I was a vegetarian when it started, and it's really hard to get vegetarian food in Hanksville. Now they do a much better job, and there's a lot of options. But that's another thing that we had to make sure we had is enough vegetarian food for the students to actually eat, because it's not like you can go in and order a bean burger. So that's another issue. That's something that has evolved, and that the town of Hanksville has evolved with us, and we're very grateful for that, because now I would say probably at least a third, if not more, of the participants are vegetarian. So it is really good that the town of Hanksville has been very supportive of this competition.
I see. Yeah. I have another question. My question is for Tim, I guess. In the URC, I know many rovers are having a hard time manipulating the panel and like using their robotic arm, because it's like one of the hardest part of the rover. And I see that the people that are designing, or maybe the teams, are getting better, as you explained. But is it getting how it's getting better at the last decade, robotic arm manipulation task, how it evolved, and is it getting better every year? You can see that with your eyes. And can you explain our experiences along that?
Yeah, we've seen, I think, over the past several years, an improvement overall. Just better designs, more accessible control systems, I think, are a big part of that. We didn't have Raspberry Pi in 2010, 2012. You're talking custom circuit boards. Now we've got the capability for teams to just go buy a readily available single board computer. They can use robot operating system, Linux, or other open source software packages and put them on their rover and really focus on the integration and successful completion of the task. And I think we've seen 3D printing as a big changer, a big change in making more compliant mechanisms for teams to use their gripper with. It's really been pretty incredible to see over the past 10 years. I think we try to make it a very difficult task, and to see a team get a perfect score it's great for the team, but then it just means our work's cut out for us to make it harder and more challenging the next year. And I think I know Daryl and I work a lot on the north site, but also the autonomous task. And I want to also emphasize the autonomy. That's one that's been probably the most difficult task. And I think we've got a new technology here, again, more accessible. This can by itself do 30 centimeter accuracy using global navigation system. So we're going to have probably the best autonomous course set up this year that we've ever had, with the most accurate waypoints for teams to go to. And we're expecting this to be more challenging because we didn't get to challenge the teams last year, and that was already a new course for them. So.
Yeah, that made me remember the year 2017, I guess, that there were like tennis balls in the autonomous mission. We were trying to get an accurate people to tennis ball, And I remember that it was not working properly, so we decided not to go for the tennis balls, but just for the waypoints, and we tried our chance. And during the competition, it worked out fine. For the half of the tennis balls, we arrived within the GPS distance. So we were very glad about that. Like it worked. So the waypoints were accurate enough for us to to move our rubber. And I remember we were like just doing that. We had been like the fourth highest score. So most of the teams were not able to score out that one. And right now the things is getting complicated, but more teams are able to do now. So I think things are changing.
I wanted to just add, Tim mentioned the key notion there of systems integration. And I've had professors there who are part of the student advisory team. They come up to me and they go like, thank you so much. These students have no chance in the university to integrate mobility, navigation, power, communications, remote control, interfaces, video streams. All of those have to work together. And they're all part of operating the rovers remotely and, of course, in autonomy too. So this is an overall task that for any students that get involved is experience that they would have trouble finding in a course. And besides the fact, of course, we're operating in an extreme environment in a real world setting.
Yeah, there's also some tasks that we have had that we found just were, I don't want to say useless, just not as productive and as educational as other tasks. I would actually call them useless. But that's because I had to set them up some years at the science site, and I was like, why? Anyway, so one of them was called the site survey task. It is actually useful when you're trying to triangulate and go somewhere. So basically it was a task. We had like, I think 3 or 5 poles set up within an X amount of area. I think it was a kilometer. And we gave them a starting GPS and then the GPS coordinates of the poles, or they had to determine the GPS coordinates of the poles. I don't recall which, but I do remember all it was trying to triangulate and find the poles. And it wasn't that useful. And there was a huge debate about what GPS system to use. And we ended up going with WGS 84. But it was, there were debates, and that was debating even back in 2007, the GPS datum to use. So we just got rid of that one. And I think it was I know it started in 2009, and I can't remember what year we got rid of it. It happened, I think, at least 2 years. But Graham, if you remember it, then it had to have been out there for more than 1 year. And I considered that one, to me, a useless one. Whereas the other ones, there's always some purpose that you could see, even if it's not needed now. Like, for example, the astronaut assistant one. Okay, well, there's not going to be an astronaut that's going to be down now because there's no astronauts on the planetary surface. But that's still very useful to do because one day there will be. And it also does locations with non-site locations, so out of line of sight locations. So anyway, the other task that we got rid of was a presentation task. We used to do at first we didn't do a presentation task. We would just drill the questions into it. But that would take up too much time. So then we asked for a presentation task. And I don't remember what year that started in. And then we went from no presentation task to doing a PDR, CDR, and having a elimination round. So it used to be if you just applied for the URC, you get in no problem. But then I think it was I don't remember what year, 2012, 2014, one of those years, we ended up having 80 or something applicants. And so we had to do some way to eliminate, because logistically you can't handle more than 36 teams. And so we did it like the planetary missions are set up. So there was a planetary preliminary design review, PDR, and that was, and then after, if you passed PDR, you went to CDR, which is critical design review, and at CDR was the cut. CDR has now changed to SAR, which is system acceptance review, because generally you want to know, that's what the final step before knowing whether or not you can fly and stuff is a system acceptance review. So we just changed the wording on that, but it's the same information. You do want to make sure that the rovers are ready to compete. But even with those vettings, usually there's at least 1 or 2 teams that go out there and their rovers don't move. It's a lot less than it was before, but there's at least some. And so for those, we kind of feel very bad for those, but there's also nothing we can do. So there's still failures, even though we try to weed those out beforehand. So
I see. So there are more questions in the comment section. So I want like short answers for those questions. First, Hadik asked a question about the rules. I don't know who wants to answer that one.
that would be for.
Yeah, this is for
or-
either Daryl or myself, I think.
Yeah, Tim, do you want to get that one?
How many gates will there be? Oh my, I have to look at the rules. But to, so we do have a set of gates and the leg. So the leg is between two GNSS points. So that would be one leg. Yep. And if that is a point of confusion, please submit a Q&A and we'll clarify it.
Yeah, a lot of times on these rules, we don't actually specify how many gates in advance because we often decide that when we set the course up like 2 days before the competition itself. You know, we like to give ourselves some flexibility. And also, you know, I mean, if the team can find and drive autonomously to an Aruko tag, it shouldn't really matter to them how many legs or every gates or whatever there are. So we usually don't specify that information in advance.
Thank you. The next question is this one. Ititas Madala. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. What exactly are core rover, readiness, and mission approach scores in SAR?
Follow the directions that are given. If you follow the directions that are given, you'll do fairly well. If you leave information out, you get a 0 for that section. There is generally about a quarter to a half a point difference between somebody that makes it and somebody that doesn't make it. And you generally, if you don't follow the directions, you're not going to be getting in because enough people have followed them.
So
there should be a guideline, specifically what needs to be outlined in those 5 pages.
So just to jump in quickly, so core rover is everything on the rover that is not mission specific. Implementation, not the arm. It's the chassis and the communications equipment and the wheels, basically. You know, do you have a little remote controlled vehicle that you can drive around in the desert? And then nothing mission specific. Readiness basically means that you have everything for all of the missions and the core rover, and it can do all of the tasks, and you're not still have like the arm sitting on a bench or like the science instrumentation sitting on the bench. That everything is fully integrated on the rover, and your rover is ready to go out and perform the tasks. And then mission approach is do you have all of the pieces for each of the missions? Like do you have a good arm design for the equipment? Can you show that you can do Aruko tag detection or drive to a GPS waypoint for the autonomy? For the science, like what science instrumentation do you have? Is it scientifically appropriate? Is it integrated on the rover? So that's basically what those pieces are. And then actually I had a question that I don't know if that made it into the Q&A yet, just the other day, like what is programmatic score? And your programmatic score is everything designed with how you organize the team, your planning, how you do recruitment and educational outreach, your systems engineering plan. Bill can talk more about like Gantt charts and and the like, but basically, you know, showing us that you have a plan and you're not just flying by the seat of your pants. If I don't know if that expression extends beyond British or not, but that's what goes into the systems acceptance review.
Thank you.
I guess we have one too ambitious question. So what are the criteria you pay attention to when giving the Science Special Award? I think they mean John Branca Award.
Yeah, so for the John Branca Award, we watch you throughout the entire time that you're there. And if there's a team that specifically helps out, like another team, for example, for no reward, and also if the leader of the team, etc. So, for example, we judge on, needs to be somebody that's on your science team, that's a good scientist, but is also a good community person, or in the spirit of the competition, camaraderie. So if you guys do absolutely horrible on the science task, likely nobody will get that John Baranka award from your team. If you do absolutely wonderful on the science task, but you are a mean team or you're rude, nobody on your team will get that Baranka award. You need to do both good in science, and you need to be nice and polite, and basically team spirit. So I think the last time we gave it, some team didn't have some like a power chord or something like that. Another team that was about to compete or there was something happening anyway, they gave them 2 or 3 of their power chords without the other team having to ask. The other team overheard, I'm missing this. The team grabbed their stuff and gave it to them and said, good luck. Okay, that's what we like, the camaraderie to say, the helping. So that was when I immediately saw that, okay, put that in the note. So then I'll watch you throughout the town if I see y'all, and if you're rude or you're mean to the people, the wait staff or whatever, that of course goes out the door too. So it's both personal and professional. Professional being within the task and personal being around the town. Now obviously there's more than one person that does that. So generally we'll go back and say, okay, we've got 2 or 3 members. Generally we always have 2 or 3 candidates for the Baranka Award. And the judges will sit down and discuss and say, okay, science-wise, how do they do? Personal-wise, usually everybody's good camaraderie. And so in that case, it comes down to who did the best science and who supported their team best for science-wise. And that's who we award the Baranka Award to. Does that answer your question okay?
I think so.
So you don't know that we're watching you. And in theory, you don't know that we're watching you. But we are watching, judging everything. And I also talk to the other judges. If I hear, oh, so-and-so team was rude to so-and-so team, or so-and-so team is yelling all the time, they're also out. So basically politeness and good science. And that's because John Baranka is very polite, very honest.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Yep.
And yeah, I just wanted to tell, it's the best day in my life. I can say that. That day we participated the UIC at all those John Baranka Award thing. I think it's, and I didn't know what's behind that, and it's nice to figure out now.
Yeah, so your team likely will not be a winning team, because it's usually the people that are kind of not doing the best. So I would say the underdog teams that are not doing the best, but yet they come around and they're still nice and polite. And I have no idea. Your team did very good for science. I have no idea how they did for the other tasks, to be honest with you. Because usually if people do really good in science, they don't necessarily in the engineering, and vice versa, in my experience. So, yeah.
Thank you. Now I want to focus on the exotic side of the URC, and I will ask each of you what was the best memory and the worst day in the URC. So we can start with Tim, I think.
Okay, best memory. I think it's when I think it was Missouri S&T. I think their rover completed the autonomous course. So then we obviously had to make it more challenging. I think it's been great to see it grow. And I usually take the picture on top of the hill out front of the MDRS tab of all the teams. And it started off this small, and now I have to step farther back with a wider lens to be able to get everyone that shows up. So it's been quite amazing.
That's cool. What about the worst one?
Oh, sorry, can you repeat that, please?
Yeah. What about the worst day in the URC?
Oh, worst.
The most challenging for you.
Yeah, I think the worst day was when it was very hot. I don't remember what our heat index was, but it was very warm, and I think the staff we had too few staff members, and I know we didn't have enough breaks to the point where we probably were in the realm of pretty dangerous areas in heat exhaustion, and just not uttering the correct words when I wanted the rover to stop, and I yelled smoke, and then the team ran out of their control station thinking that the rover was on Spire but it was just me not being able to use the right words at that point in time at the North site. So that was my worst experience.
Oh, thank you very much. I'm gonna go with the Graham then.
Yeah, so I'll start with some of the bad stuff because I think it's always fun to finish off with the good stuff. There wasn't really a worst day for me. We had, in my time, there were 2 medical emergencies we had. And I think, we have staff who are trained in first aid and medical care. And so, we try to be attentive when issues pop up. And in both those cases, the students were okay in the long run. One was a burn, one was a major dehydration issue that had popped up. But also through the years, I think it is important for all the competitors and staff members who come to the site to know how remote we are, how far from a hospital we are, and that things do come up. The road back to the hab, there was the one year where it turned into a sand trap and several people got stuck. There was one year where the road had washed out just before the event started, and so it was very difficult to get back to the habitat. Over the years, there were issues like sandstorms. We had people get hit by objects flying in the sand. And so, we've had a lot of things pop up that are challenges for us and for the teams over the years. But I don't know if I have a worst day out of any of them, because for all those insignificant things that happen or significant things that happen, there's so many good things. And so even for my best days, there are so many times where just watching teams be there for each other. There have been several times where a rover failed entirely to get off the line or broke down, or we had an issue like we have had some fires on board rovers. To see the teams come together to embrace one another and cry through those moments after having worked so very hard for over a year in many cases, and then having an issue pop up that takes them out of the competition or has their rover entirely offline. It's beautiful for us to see as the staff and the judges, to see that camaraderie, to see them working together. Like Heather mentioned, when teams share equipment or have, if they have a spare piece of something that another team needs and they're willing to share, those moments have been so powerful for me over the years. It's fun for me, running logistics and helping out with the event, just to have a chance to get to all the different sites, to see so many different things happening throughout the entire event. And so for me, the big thing is the people, to see the smiles and the tears and the sweat in that sun, to see everyone working together to shade each other and get water and food to each other, and then to work as a team while their rovers are out in the field, especially under those high pressure, moments of the competition. I think, for me, the best time is just seeing the people working together in the event.
I see. Daryl, we can go on with you.
I think I would mostly agree with what Graham and Tim said. Yeah, I mean, the couple of medical emergencies. I was out at the North site with the team the one year that the guy got dehydrated and they had to take him to hospital. That was those are not fun moments. And again, when just due to bad luck, teams, particularly on the wheels, motor drivers tend to burn out, and then your rover doesn't move anywhere. The one thing I would say, particularly any teams watching this, if your rover does not move, there is still a lot of science you can do. And if your arm is still moving, but the rest of the rover's not, we will let you physically carry the rover out to the equipment panel for a penalty. Unless absolutely nothing is working, you can still turn up to a mission and at least do something, probably. And even if there's a penalty involved. It's always heartbreaking when stuff doesn't work. I remember, this was pretty early on. This was quite a few years ago. The one team's rover got stuck in customs. This is another issue that comes up every year. Teams don't ship their stuff early enough, and unfortunately, particularly from some countries in particular, tend to have a lot of extra scrutiny that they get in customs. And I remember in particular that the one team, they built a rover from scratch in 1 week. because they did not get their rover out of customs. They couldn't get it out of customs, and they went down the hardware store and bought some pipes and wheels and a couple of motors, and they stuck a laptop on the back, and they bought a Wi-Fi system from electronics store, and they built a rover from scratch within 1 week. Now, admittedly, it worked as well as you might expect for a rover built in 1 week's time, but they still managed to come out and compete, and that kind of stuff, when you see it, is amazing. And I think Graham also mentioned that the one time a rover caught fire, and we were all running around looking for the fire extinguisher that took longer to find than it should have done, and they managed to they grab enough spare electronics from that they had on them, and also from other teams that they managed to scrounge, and they pulled an all-nighter. They worked through entirely through the night, and they had their rover up and running again for the competition the next day, and that was just amazing to see. So those are probably some of my worst and best memories in one, if you like.
Wonderful. It reminds me the day where, as far as I remember, it was in 2017 or so. One team got through the visa process. I don't know if it was the visa process or entrance through the security, but only one team member survived. So they built the whole rover, but just one guy built the whole rover and brought it to the competition. Yeah.
I don't remember any team that just got one person through. I remember a team that only had 3 people managed to get through the
I'm
visa
not
process.
remembering it right. But I remember, Kevin was saying on the last day of the competition about the team.
We cut him a little break with the rules for runners on that, when you can have somebody go out to see the field. But fortunately, that they weren't vying for the trophy. So it was okay. We could cut them a break on that without worrying too much about affecting the scores of the competition. But
I don't know if we have a moment, but I think all of us will recall the excitement of the award ceremonies, and when we, the judges, are standing on the porch of MDRS, and we have hundreds of these students standing around us with their rovers. And it's almost every time, tears come to my eyes of just wow, look what we've done, and look at their camaraderie, this spirit that we've gathered here in the desert. And what does this mean, for each of them, and what does it mean internationally? That accomplishment is just so tangible in those moments. It's very exciting.
Yeah. What about the worst day of you, Bill?
Well, it'd be something like Graham or Tim said, of seeing one of these rovers tumble over a cliff and feeling like, why are we doing this to them? And we've modified some of that, but you feel so sad. And yet, as Daryl was saying, somehow these rovers, they operate again the next day, and it really says something for the robustness of their engineering and their capability.
I see.
Well,
Thank
I've
you.
had a few worst days there. Probably my worst time is when I had to judge the competition after the previous judges had gone, and so there were 2 new judges, and it just was not a mesh and not a meld, and nothing was working out well. So the last day was a pretty bad day when we were discussing all the results, and the judge wasn't necessarily a planetary person, and so that was a little hard to have to go back and explain everything. And then the second time, both best and worst, is Michigan showed up with 4 team members, and they had their rover open, trying to fix something electronically. I don't remember what happened. Sandstorm came along. Tent blew away. We're chasing the tent. Sand grain landed in their electronics and shorted it out. And that was as they were getting ready for the competition. So that was pretty sad because they could no longer get their rover to move, and it was the sandstorm's fault, not theirs. And then that same day, the leader of that team came back with a methanogen experiment that they spent $1 on. They had to buy a water bottle to do the experiment in, but they had everything else. And that was one of the most ingenious experiments that year. And the fact that they did it after they had just lost their, rover functioning, that was pretty amazing. And so that was great. And the fact that it was low cost. So another thing I'd like to point out is most of these science things that are done that get the most, I would say, brownie points are the lowest cost ones. It's creativity that gets it. Like one year BYU used jean straps to clean the solar panels. Most effective method to clean the solar panels. They bought no material. That was jean straps along with car doormat straps. Both of them were stuff that they found laying around. So the teams don't have to spend a lot of money. They just have to be pretty brilliant and creative. And that was the best day. Yeah, probably the Michigan $1 methanogen experiment right after they just lost the Rover. So I thought that was pretty good. So that's it.
Yeah, thank you. For the last questions, I will ask. Gülşen asked the question. Do you share the documents prepared by the teams with research groups?
No, but the research groups are welcome to publish a paper on their result in a peer-reviewed journal. First of all, we don't have permission from the teams to share the documents. Second of all, if the documents are not peer-reviewed, they're somewhat worthless in the scientific community. So you might as well submit it to a peer-reviewed group.
Heather, we've lost your audio.
Yeah.
Oh.
For the last
I
two
don't know
sentences.
Maybe you can come closer to your microphone. Maybe that's the thing.
Okay.
Good.
Oh, let's just press the mute button and unmute it. Unmute. Can you hear me now?
Yeah, it's good. Better.
Okay. So basically, for science, it needs to be in a peer-reviewed journal to have any credibility. So we're not going to publish any of this stuff. Second of all, it's stuff that teams have prepared, and we don't have the right to share it. It's they own that document. So you could reach out to a team individually to look at past ones that were good, but no, we don't share them.
Actually, I would just jump in here and say a lot of, particularly a lot of the best teams, you guys are all university students, and a lot of the teams that they do their own research and they publish it themselves, and we highly encourage teams, to publish any research that they do. A couple of years ago, several teams got together and they published a chapter in a book on the ROS operating system. You guys can go out and find that. I see a couple of you guys nodding, so you're familiar with that.
Yeah, I remember that one. We have contributed that one also. Yeah.
Yeah. It was you guys and it was ITU and R3, and I forget who else. But anyway, a lot of teams do publish their own research that they do for the competition.
I see. Thank you. I think we're out of questions. That's good. So for the last questions, I have a question. I want to know in the future of the URC, what do you see in the 5-year projection from now? What you want to see in the URC, your hopes and your ideas about it. And I will go one by one, then we can finally finish. And for the questions on the comment section, please leave your questions. And this is my last call. Then there will be no more questions, and we will be ending. Tim, let's start with you.
Okay, so I'm big on the North site. So I think one thing that I would like to see is a team that successfully completes our autonomous navigation course, the new one. So I think that we're going to continue to improve it and make it more challenging. It is a field of study that I think there's a lot of utility in all sorts of real-world applications. Same thing with the equipment servicing there. I think we may change a few things up there, but I'm not going to say too much about it. We've got to think about it some, but I think we want to see what we can make that's analogous to space exploration, and also something that we can easily maintain in the coming years. But I won't give too much away. So, thanks.
I see. Thank you. We can go on with
For the south side, oh, go ahead, Graham. Sorry.
No worries. Yeah, so it's been fun for me over this many years now watching the competition evolve. Of course, with the pandemic, we haven't had the live competition now in the past 2 years. And so I'm looking forward to, one, having everyone come back together again in Utah for the competition. As far as the evolution in the next 5 years, as Heather mentioned earlier, the science task has changed through time. The engineering tasks have changed through time based on how the students are and the teams are performing, how the rovers are performing, and what's capable of being done. And so I think in the next 5 years, we'll continue to see that evolution. For Tim, once the teams start successfully finishing this course and then getting very good at it, we'll start seeing more evolution of the course and more challenge. It'll never get to the point where it's so easy that all of the rovers can simply complete everything. And so from my side of it, for developing our event for the judges and the staff, I would like to see more development for our infrastructure for the event, making sure that we are providing for our staff and judges to make sure there's a good event for them. They're getting plenty of breaks through the day. I will say having 36 teams for a 3-day competition means that some of our judges end up out on the course all day long, never having much of a break to have food or water or really anything. And so for me personally, I'd like to see us continue evolving and making sure the competition is fair and safe for everyone.
Thank you. Daryl?
I've really enjoyed watching the competition grow from when it was just URC, and then now we have the European Rover Challenge and the Canadian International Rover Challenge. Last year, we also had a UK Rover Challenge. And last year the Australians just started one. I heard talk that they're planning one in Georgia, the country, not the States. And it's just been great. And also we have the Indian Rover Challenge as well. And it's been great watching the competition grow. It was in the virtual event, but we had our first winners from a Southeast Asia. One of the teams from Bangladesh won the virtual Rover Challenge last year. I look forward to seeing them or another team from that area win URC in person at MDRS sometime soon. We have a few more teams from South America there. We've had a Colombian teams and a Peruvian team, so it's nice watching the competition grow. And in 5 years' time, hopefully everybody will have a rover competition in driving distance that they can a version of URC or something that they go drive to without having to jump across a plane and ship a rover literally halfway around the world. For Africa, I think we've only had teams from Egypt so far. Anybody correct me anywhere else? Not that I know of. I look forward to seeing the competition grow. We've had a couple of Korean teams, but it doesn't seem to have taken off much yet there. We haven't yet had a Chinese team. So
we had the Chinese newspaper.
Sorry?
We had the Chinese newspaper come out.
Oh, okay. Well, we've had news, and I know Zubrin was in China advertising the competition, but we have not yet had a Chinese team compete. So this is basically becoming a global competition rather than just this one little niche competition out in Utah. So that's what I really look forward to seeing in the next 5 years.
Oh, thank you very much. Bill, we can go on with you.
Yeah, what I've seen is that the tests that are offered are getting more complex, and our course is very large for the extreme retrieval and delivery, extending even beyond hills into areas that are not visible from the HAB. And so I would like to be introducing more opportunity for a strategy for dynamic reconsideration as the teams have to weigh the risk of pursuing one path or even skipping a task because of the time. They have to get so many points. And I would like rather than seeing that they complete the entire mission, that they are thinking through how to accomplish the different tasks that we're offering them. And including, for example, a drone that would allow doing reconnaissance of an area where the rover can't go, or maybe the Wi-Fi doesn't work beyond that point. That would make that more possible and more interesting.
Let's see. Heather?
Okay, so this year we're doing the same tasks as we did last year, only we're putting more mineralogy out. What I would like to see is the teams to be able to distinguish the mineralogy versus biological colorization. And so I guess basically most of the teams to be able to perform the task. As far as logistically, I'd love to see more international teams for it to remain international and to have some of those underdeveloped countries involved. We haven't had Brazil come out either, and Brazil has a space program. That would be nice. There's many teams we haven't seen. As far as the scientific judging, not this last year, but in 2019, we had a panel, a science judge panel, and we did a score sheet. I would prefer for it to remain a science panel, 2 or 3 judges. And also I would like to see past competitors come back and be science helpers or science judges. Now there's going to have to be some distance between the competition and them judging, because obviously if you went to school with somebody, you can't judge that team non-biasedly, if that makes sense. So, there'll have to be some years, but I would hope to incorporate past participants as future judges. I think that would be a great idea, and it would help, carry it on. So that's what I'd like to see. Yes.
Yeah, thank you very much. I'm gonna finish with one of the missions, with a focus on one of the missions, extreme retrieval and delivery task, which I think is a very special task that reminds me all the future science-fi movies and everything. So we can, I think this question is for Bill. How about this year's extreme retrieval and delivery mission?
Did you want to show the, yes. So this is the kind of a sketch of the course that we present to the students. And it actually has one complication I wanted to emphasize, that we are operating 2 teams staggered in parallel because of the time that it takes to run the course and the number of teams that we want to run through it during the 3 days. So we're operating 1 team out of MDRS, the HAB on the left, Team A, and another team has their command center set up in the Science Dome, Team B on the right. And you can see they share the first 5, 6 tasks, which are labeled stage 1 on the right side. And we've staggered it so that a team naturally has moved into what you see as the more distant part of the task, 7, 8, and 9, when the next team begins and is also on the course. So this has been an innovation and a necessity for us. I wanted to point out one of the points of flexibility I was referring to. If you look at 5 and 6 on the right side, the teams have to, again, working remotely, of course, from the HAB, using a video that's only accessible on their screen. They need to pick up the water bottle and deliver it to this astronaut, who is actually, it's set up as a dummy, below a 1 meter a cliff that has a 1 meter drop off. And one of the aspects of this that was so important pedagogically is, as Heather was saying, it doesn't make sense to drive your Rover over a cliff. And some of them can do that, but you have the opportunity to go around to the right side and come down a sandy little ravine, avoiding the cliff entirely. And that's what I meant by thinking strategically and weighing risk and time. Did you have any other question you wanted to ask about this?
Yeah, a little question. Like, since two teams will be competing at the same time in the same place, so there will be like communications happening at the same time. So what I think is, you're also you want teams to be able to use the systems that can work together in the communication systems that can bundle together, right? Like Wi-Fi and other technologies.
Yes, you're right. I mean, yes, and they have to be. And the radio that we allow has to be on different channels, of course, so that the teams can communicate when we allow that for purposes of repair. Yeah, there's a lot of coordination, and that's why I said, I have 4 other people working here, and normally there might be 2 or 3 or more volunteers running back and forth and helping us reset the course and so on. So it's quite an operation. And as Graham and Tim said, if it's hot, if it's windy, if there's dust in the air, rain might be coming. This is a very intense experience for us from 7 a.m. to 5 or 6 p.m. For 3 days, just about.
Thank you very much. I think I'm out of my questions, and I want to ask you if you have any questions to us as well. Maybe a point that you want to elaborate before finishing.
I look forward to you hearing these conversations with some of the other Rover competitions. I don't know who else you're planning to talk to, but
we're playing with the Indian Rover Challenge as well.
Okay, great. You're talking to Sagar. Okay, great. I look forward to seeing that one.
Thank you very much. I hope this video is helpful for some teams or some people out of the industry as well. And thank you very much for your time. It was a really good time listening to you and all the memories. Thank you very much.
And also thank you very much for sharing your Sunday morning with us.
Yeah, same for y'all, unless it's not Sunday morning and then Sunday evening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, take care. Thanks.
Bye all.
Bye. I am now